Lily was still upset that Jason had stolen the credit for her success with Williams Media, and he did it right in front of the whole family at the celebration banquet. Jason continued to chip away at Lily's accomplishment, telling Grandma Jones, "For the sake of the family, no matter how much I suffer, I'm willing to carry on the struggle. I heard that Williams Media signed a new client named Brittany Davis just a few days ago. I want to fight for it. Tomorrow, I'll help us negotiate the packaging contract for this new client. What do you think?" Since the Jones family had already established a basic partnership with Williams Media, the packaging deal for a new client would definitely be very easy to negotiate. Jason knew that now he had a real opportunity. As long as he got Brittany's packaging deal, his grandmother would definitely give him all the credit for the family's success. Grandma Jones was very satisfied to see him working so hard. "JJ, you are indeed the most responsible one here. You're an asset to our family and to our company. I'll leave it all up to you. You're going to do a great job." After hearing Grandma Jones's words, Lily felt very uneasy. She and Dorothy looked at each other, and her mother could only lightly pat her hand under the table. Why the heck did Grandma Jones like Jason so much? Now that she had made up her mind to leave this matter up to him, what else could they do? Tonight's banquet originally belonged to Lily, but not anymore. Jason had snatched Lily's credit with a few words, and now he was the star of the show. Although Lily felt torn up inside, she didn't show it. After all, she knew she wasn't Grandma Jones's favorite in the family. Jason grabbed the opportunity to look generous. "Today it's my treat. Eat and drink all that you want. I'm paying." He waved his wallet at the head waiter. Jason sat down and waved at the waiter again. "Waiter, go and get a bottle of your best wine for every table. I want the best and most expensive wine you have. Hurry up." The waiter was about to show him the wine list, but when he heard him say that, he nodded and went to get the wine from the cellar. After all the wine was served, Jason raised his glass and stood up happily. "Let's have a toast. Let's celebrate the signing of our new client contract with Williams Media tomorrow. Eat up. Drink up. Let's party all night." Everyone stood up and raised their glasses to toast Jason. After all, his status in the family had just gone up a notch or two. When the banquet was coming to an end, Jason was unable to stand upright. His eyes were blurry as he called for the waiter to come over. He then pulled the card from his wallet and said, "Use my card to pay the bill." "That's a Lux Bank Sapphire card." Someone recognized Jason's credit card and immediately cried out in surprise. Those who were close to him couldn't help but widen their eyes when they saw the ultra-high-end card in his hand. The Lux Bank card wasn't something that just anyone could get. The most basic card, the silver card, had a limit of $25,000. A gold card went up to $50,000, and the sapphire card that Jason took out had a limit of $100,000. Jason's personal wealth was about $6 million, but that didn't reflect how much cash he had on hand. So it took Jason nearly 3 years to save up enough to get this exclusive card. He'd only had it for 2 days. Jason looked over at Phoebe, who was seated next to him, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was such a good opportunity to show off in front of Miss Anderson. Naturally, he couldn't resist. When Phoebe saw Jason's Lux Bank Sapphire card, she couldn't help but look at him differently. Although she was a rising star in the Anderson family, she only had around $2 million in the bank. That's why she had the Lux Bank Gold card, which was 1 grade lower than Jason's. Although she had previously said that she could double the price to buy her own Dream Lover necklace, she was secretly going to ask her father to pay for it. Feeling Phoebe's gaze on him, Jason felt even more excited. He sat up straight. "You can do whatever you want. I'll pay for everyone here tonight. However, that table isn't included." The table he pointed at was the one where Kevin was sitting. Because Kevin hadn't been fully accepted by the Jones family, very few people were willing to sit at the same table as him. The people who did choose to sit with him weren't as wealthy or popular as the rest of the guests. Jason simply didn't care if he offended them. He continued to push Kevin's buttons. "Kevin, do you have any money? Don't tell me you can't even afford to pay and you still need to beg money from your wife." Jason stood up unsteadily, staggering to Kevin's side and patted him on the shoulder. Kevin smiled and didn't say anything. Jason pulled his hand away with a look of contempt in his eyes and turned to look at Phoebe. "Miss Anderson, you like the dream lover, don't you? I have a lot of friends and connections. Don't worry, I will definitely help you buy it." Phoebe nodded her head slightly in response to the spectacle. There was still no smile on her stoic yet elegant face. "Thank you for the kind offer, Mr. Jones," she replied. Jason was about to say something else, but at that moment, the waiter who had taken his sapphire card to pay the bill walked quickly over to him. "Mr. Jones, I'm very sorry. The limit on this card isn't high enough to pay for tonight's bill." "Are you kidding me? This card has a $100,000 limit, and you're telling me it's not enough for tonight's meal?" Jason looked at the waiter in disbelief. He reached out to grab the man's collar, but he was stopped by the people around him at his table. After all, this was the Whistler Hotel. Jason was a little drunk, but most of the people were still very sober. This was not the time or place to cause trouble. The waiter took a step back and looked at Jason with an odd mix of horror and surprise in his eyes. "I'm sorry, but I forgot to tell you. Mr. Jones, you've spent over $110,000 tonight." That sobered Jason up right away. $110,000? What were they eating? Gold? "You're a thief. Get your manager here right now." Kevin watched the whole scene without saying a word, and finally he couldn't help laughing. Jason was really a dope. He pretended to be an uber-rich person all day. Then he made a mess of the whole evening. It started when he asked the waiter to serve him a bottle of the hotel's best wine for each table. Others may not have seen it coming, but Kevin knew right away it would be a problem. The hotel served them one of the top wines in the world, a Grand Cru from Burgundy in France. The retail price of this wine was as high as $5,000 per bottle. Not a wise decision on Jason's part. Seeing him reacting like this, the waiter was in no good mood to argue with him. He turned around and called the hotel manager over. When the hotel manager arrived at his table, Jason stepped up to him angrily and asked loudly, "This is how you do business? You're nothing but a thief. I'm going to file a complaint with the State Liquor Control Commission. I have friends downtown." The hotel manager smiled and said calmly, "Mr. Jones, you said that I should serve you our best wine. That's what I did. Because you needed 20 bottles for the entire room, we gave you our best price. You actually saved almost $18,000. Your complaint will be thrown out by the commission." "You bastard! If this wine is so rare, how come you're able to sell more than 20 bottles at a time? Who are you trying to fool? You're making a big mistake." Jason reached out to grab the hotel manager's lapels. Just then, an extremely calm voice came from the entrance of the banquet hall. "What seems to be the problem here?" Everyone looked over and saw a man in an Armani suit walking towards Jason. Behind him was a group of burly-looking men in black suits. As soon as Grandma Jones saw the man in the Armani suit, she quickly stood up and walked up to him. "Mr. Cook, I'm very sorry about this misunderstanding. My grandson sometimes drinks a little too much and makes bad decisions. I'm sure that we can find another way to settle this." After she said that, she offered her hand to the hotel owner as gesture of goodwill. When everyone saw how much respect Grandma Jones was showing toward the man, they realized Jason put them in a bad position. Mitchell Cook wasn't just the owner of the Whistler Hotel. He was also well known as one of the most influential men in Chicago. Definitely a big shot you didn't want to mess with. When he saw Mr. Cook, Jason sobered up completely, but now he was covered in a layer of cold sweat. His hands trembling, he quickly let go of the hotel manager's suit. He even reached out to help smooth the wrinkles on his lapels. The hotel manager snorted. His boss had appeared, and he felt even more confident. He said to Jason sarcastically, "Your Jones family is pretty famous in Chicago. Since you asked for the best wine, how could you refuse to pay?" Jason didn't have the time to wipe the beads of sweat that kept flowing down his face. He snapped his finger and said, "I won't go back on my word. We'll pay for it." As he spoke, he gave a pleading look towards his grandmother. He couldn't possibly scrape together $400,000 this evening. He unconsciously took a step towards Grandma Jones like he was going to use her to shield him from Mitchell Cook. Grandma Jones sighed and forced a smile at Mr. Cook. "It was our fault for what happened tonight. Mr. Cook, please don't hold it against us, and don't worry, we'll get you the money right away." After saying that, she turned to the Jones family members who were in the banquet hall. "We can't let JJ pay all the expenses tonight. Each of you should contribute $5,000. The rest of the money will be paid by JJ and me." Everyone nodded in agreement. They had no choice, but they wanted to look like they were okay with it. However, two of them couldn't hide their concern and wore very embarrassed expressions on their faces. Lily and Dorothy. It would be pretty tough for them to come up with $5,000 for this meal. What was really unfair was that they'd barely touched the wine. The $4 million that Kevin gave Lily had already been used for her emergency expenses, so they didn't have any extra money left over. Jason, who had learned nothing from all of this, asked her, "Lily, why are you looking so upset? Don't tell me you can't even come up with $5,000. Don't you want to pitch in?" Lily saw that everyone was looking at her because of Jason's insulting remarks. She tried to control her breathing and calm down. "We have $5,000, Kevin suddenly interrupted Lily. His back was facing Jason, Mr. Cook, and the others, so they hadn't noticed him yet. The moment Mitchell Cook heard Kevin's voice, his expression changed dramatically. "May I ask who you are?" Mr. Cook queried with a very slight quiver in his usually calm voice. The others probably didn't pick up on it, but Kevin could. He shook his head and grinned. Jason saw that Mr. Cook had suddenly taken an interest in Kevin. He thought that Kevin's actions had somehow offended the man. He tried to protect himself by addressing the boss. "Mr. Cook, please don't be angry. This man isn't even a true member of our family. He married into it. If you don't like him, do whatever you want. Just don't take it out on the rest of us." "Get lost." Mr. Cook glared at Jason as he gestured for him to get out of the way. Kevin stood up, turned around, and looked calmly at Mr. Cook. An expression of pure joy and excitement instantly appeared on the man's face. He hadn't seen Kevin in 7 years, and he certainly hadn't expected to see him at the Whistler Hotel today. "Long time no see," Kevin said as he greeted his old friend with a smile. His expression was relaxed and natural. He completely ignored the stunned members of the Jones family. Mr. Cook quickly walked over and gave Kevin a warm hug. He looked absolutely thrilled to see him. "It's really you. I can't believe it. How are you doing, boss?" The Jones family was still trying to straighten out the mess that Jason had put them in with the exorbitant bill for the banquet. When the hotel owner, Mr. Mitchell Cook, showed up, he welcomed Kevin like an old friend and called him boss. Boss? Everyone was stunned. Kevin was Mr. Cook's boss? The manager of the hotel, who had been working for Mitchell Cook for many years, stood there with his mouth open wide in amazement. He looked at Mr. Cook, who had uncharacteristically lost his composure, and he just couldn't believe it. Was this still the boss who was actually so calm, cool, and collected in front of them? "I'm not your boss anymore, Mr. Cook. Just call me Kevin." When Mr. Cook straightened his back and offered his hand for a more professional greeting, Kevin quickly pulled him back and whispered something in his ear. Life is strange. When Mitchell Cook first walked into the room, Kevin actually saw him, but he wasn't sure what to do. That's why he turned around. To give you some background, when he was a teenager, Kevin saved Mitchell Cook's life. At the time, Cook was running with a bunch of petty criminals. He had a tough reputation, but after a while, he naturally ended up with a few enemies. Cook had been set up by some of these thugs, and they'd beaten him half to death. If Kevin, who usually traveled with a couple of his family bodyguards, hadn't shown up by chance, Cook would have died. And he wouldn't currently be the owner of the Whistler Hotel. Here's how that happened. Sometime later, Cook wanted to start a business, but he didn't have enough money. It was Kevin who provided him with almost $100,000, no strings attached, to get his business off the ground. Kevin was shocked to see how his friend Mitch, as he called him, had been able to meet with such great success after just 6 or 7 years. After Cook got the money from Kevin, he cut all his ties with the area, mainly to get away from his enemies and have a clean start. He went to Chicago alone and started from scratch. Finally, he built the enormous and very luxurious Whistler Hotel in Chicago. Cook really wanted to track Kevin down to thank him, but he was worried that he would bring trouble to Kevin and his family. Then, about 3 years ago, he had finally cleaned up his reputation so he could get in touch with the Williams family so he could reconnect with Kevin. That's when he found out that Kevin had been kicked out of his own family. It wasn't at all what he had expected to hear. He assigned a few of his employees to search for Kevin, but they were unable to find any trace of him, either online or in the rough parts of town. And now, here they were finally seeing each other in person after all these years. Cook thought about everything Kevin had done for him and said, "It's hard to change an old habit, boss. Kevin?" You could hear everyone heave a sigh of relief. After all, it didn't sound right for such a powerful man to call Kevin boss. Still, everyone was wondering how Kevin and Mr. Cook knew each other. Kevin asked his friend, "If you could just ask the waiter to add my table's bill to the $5,000, I can give you my card to pay." With a big smile, Mr. Cook shook his head and replied, "Your money's no good here. Put your card away." He was going to give Kevin his meal for free. Then he told the hotel manager that Kevin's meals would all be free in the future. Kevin stared at him for a moment and opened his mouth to speak. But Cook immediately understood and quickly changed his offer. "How about if I give you a discount, a 50% discount?" He turned to the hotel manager and said, "Please go add up Mr. Williams' bill and bring it back to me." The hotel manager quickly nodded. "Right away, sir." Grandma Jones and Jason were shocked to hear that the owner of the hotel actually wanted to give Kevin a 50% discount. This was unheard of. Realizing that the rest of the bill still hadn't been paid, Grandma smiled and walked forward. "Mr. Cook, I didn't know that you're friends with our Kevin. Since we're paying this bill together, may we have a discount too?" He looked at Grandma Jones with a smirk and replied calmly, "Didn't that guy just say that Kevin has nothing to do with your family? I'm sorry, but your bills should be paid separately." Grandma Jones's face froze. She knew that Cook wouldn't give them the same discount. Kevin took a look at the bill. After the discount, it was about $2,500. Jason watched this in disbelief. "Ha! $2,500? Kevin, you were just bragging. I'd like to see how you could even pay that much." But Jason was livid. How could Mr. Cook give Kevin a 50% discount but not do the same for him? Meanwhile, Lily and Dorothy were very concerned. They really hoped he could cover the bill. Kevin looked at Jason, who was sneering as he waited to see this all play out. He took his wallet out of his pocket, pulled out a bank card, and handed it to the hotel manager. "Just a moment, sir." The hotel manager slid the card into his portable reader. When Jason saw Kevin's bank card, he continued to taunt him. "A deadbeat who doesn't even have a Lux bank card should be careful how much he spends." One of the others there added, "Yeah, I'll bet the hotel manager will tell him that his card wouldn't swipe." Another one commented, "Kevin really is a jackass. So what if he knows Mr. Cook? He doesn't have enough money to pay the bill. I don't think he'll get out of this mess." Listening to what they were all saying about Kevin, Cook turned and gave them an impatient, cold stare. He really wanted to go over and shut Jason's mouth for him. When Jason saw how Cook was looking at him, his face instantly turned pale. His voice trailed off and he sat in awkward silence. The rest of the Joneses clammed up too. Lily stared nervously at the hotel manager, afraid that Kevin's card would be rejected for lack of funds. Finally, the hotel manager spoke up. "All right, Mr. Williams, the transaction went through. Here's your card." He politely returned the card to Kevin, who nodded his thanks and put the card back into his wallet. What? The transaction went through? How was this possible? Everyone was confused. Lily tugged on Kevin's sleeve and leaned into his ear. "Where did you get so much money from?" "Don't worry, Lily. I just hope you enjoyed the banquet," Kevin said with a big grin. Lily didn't press the issue. Now she really didn't know what to think. Kevin thought for a second and said to her quietly, I have something I need to do later. You and Dorothy can go home first. You don't have to wait for me. Drive carefully." Lily looked over at Mr. Cook and then she looked at Kevin. She nodded and then left with her mother. After the rest of the Jones family had finally paid the bill, they took off one by one. Kevin got a ride with Cook, but he didn't go straight home.
"Boss, have you been in Chicago for the past 3 years?"
Cook was driving while Kevin sat in the back seat. Looking at the view outside the window, Kevin responded, "Yeah, about 2.5 years. What about you? Have you been in Chicago all this time?" Cook laughed.
"That's right. When you told me it would be easier to get a fresh start if I moved, it sounded like a good idea. A friend of mine was living in Chicago, so I decided to come here. It was tough at first, but I've done okay. I hope you're not disappointed."
"You've done an amazing job. I never imagined you were the owner of the Whistler Hotel. I was right to believe in you. Also, I told you not to call me boss. Just call me Kevin. We know each other too well." Kevin looked at Cook, who was still excited. He just smiled and shook his head. Cook kept his eyes on the road.
"All right, and you just call me whatever you want."
Seeing that they'd been driving for a while, Kevin asked casually, "By the way, where are you taking me?"
"Do you remember Adriana Wright? A couple of years ago, I accidentally found out that she was also looking for you, so I met with her. She founded the West Chicago International Group. I just told her about meeting you in my hotel, and she was really happy about it. We talked it over and decided to surprise you."
Cook turned around and gave Kevin a mischievous smile. Kevin raised his eyebrow. Adriana Wright? What a nice surprise to hear that she was doing well, too. Kevin met Adriana when he lost his briefcase in a wine store. She was working in the shop and noticed that he'd left it behind. When she went outside with the briefcase, Kevin had just gotten into his car and left. Adriana ran after him for 3 blocks to try to catch up with him. When Kevin finally remembered that he'd forgotten his briefcase, he made a U-turn and saw her standing there out of breath, but holding his briefcase in her hand. Kevin found out that Adriana wanted to start her own business, so he formed a partnership with her. He also fronted her $100,000 just like he'd done for Cook. He didn't really expect Adriana to be so sharp at running a business. What he was sure of was that she was honest and hardworking. After all, she had chased him for 3 blocks to return his briefcase. In just a few short years, she actually built the West Chicago International Group. After a few more minutes of driving, Kevin and Cook stopped at an enormous office complex in the west suburbs. They got out of the car together and walked into the headquarters of the West Chicago International Group, which was tastefully designed in a blend of modern glass and Greek architecture. After walking into the main hall, they were greeted by one of Adriana's administrative assistants. "Mr. Cook, the president is waiting for you on the 3rd floor. Do you want me to accompany this gentleman and show him the displays on the 1st floor?" It was a very kind offer, but Cook just shook his head no and answered, "No need. Mr. Williams can take a look around by himself. It will make him a little uncomfortable if you follow him." Kevin quickly agreed. "Yes, you don't need to follow me. I'll go and take a look for myself. You guys can go and do what you want." "Kevin, you can visit the place as you wish. These things in the hall are new products that have just been released. You can take some back for your wife if you want. She should like that." Cook pointed at the various skincare products and makeup on the display stands. Kevin thought to himself, "What the heck is this big?" Kevin shook his head and smiled. He didn't know what kind of surprise was waiting for him. Cook made it sound so mysterious. In the meantime, he would wait around in the display area on the 1st floor of the West Chicago International Group's headquarters. Kevin smiled and reassured Cook. "Okay, I got it, Mitch. Adriana's waiting for you. You should go see her." "Okay, Kevin. Wait down here for a while. We'll go and get a surprise ready for you." Cook grinned and turned to leave for the 3rd floor. Adriana's Chicago headquarters was very large. The 1st floor was mainly used to display the latest products. Kevin spent a lot of time looking around. It was a dazzling display. "Some of these products are pretty cool," he thought to himself. "Hey, I thought it was Kevin." A familiar female voice startled him out of his reverie. Kevin turned his head to look. The woman in front of him, wearing a tight denim skirt that hugged her curves, was Lily's friend Rachel. Rachel's husband used to be a department manager in one of the branches of West Chicago International Group. He was promoted the day before and was now the regional manager. So Rachel wanted to use this opportunity to enjoy herself in the headquarters and buy a new set of products in the display area. She certainly didn't expect to meet Kevin here. She said in a snarky tone, "Kevin, you came here by yourself? Let me remind you, the things in West Chicago International Group aren't cheap. Can you afford it? If you don't have enough money, you should get out fast. They'll show you the door if you can't afford it, and you'll be pretty embarrassed." Kevin kept on smiling. "You don't have to worry about whether I can afford it or not. By the way, it seems you still haven't called me boss since we made the bet the other day." When Kevin brought that up, Rachel snapped back at him. "Stop showing off. I don't know what kind of scuzzy deals you made to get that money." Rachel's latest put-down amused Kevin. "No matter how I did it, I did it. Are you going to go back on your word?" As soon as he finished speaking, a balding man with a slight paunch walked over and spoke to Rachel.
"Honey, what's wrong? Who is this?"
It turned out that this man was Rachel's husband. Kevin silently sized him up and then looked back at Rachel. Well, he thought, I guess opposites attract. Rachel pointed at Kevin and complained, "Hubby, this guy is Lily's husband, the one who married into the Jones family. He was being very rude to me and wanted me to call him boss." Rachel's husband was named Cody Hunter. He had quite a reputation for his violent temper. Hearing Rachel's complaint, he flew into a rage. He glared at Kevin.
"Who the hell are you? You want her to call you boss? Who am I then? Are you my boss too? How about if I toss you out on your butt?"
Kevin stared at the two of them in disbelief. Well, he thought to himself, I guess they're not so opposite after all. Somehow he managed to keep his calm. "You have to know that this was your wife's idea. She said that if she lost our bet, she would call me boss. As for me being your boss, I would never hire someone like you, not even to clean my cat's litter box." This didn't help things, and Cody yelled back,
"You piece of shit! How about if I teach you a lesson?"
Cody grabbed Kevin's collar and was about to punch him. Rachel watched with pleasure.
"Stop it!"
A furious roar instantly stunned everyone, including Cody. Cody stepped back and unclenched his fists, raising his open hands in the air like he was surrendering. He looked at Cook, who was running toward him like lightning, followed by Adriana, who was right behind him. Cody was stunned.
"Mr. Cook, and President Wright, what a nice, surprise."
Cody dropped his hands and with a big smile on his face quickly went up to greet the two of them. Cook glared at him and brushed his hand away.
"Who the hell are you? Do you want to take a swing at me too?"
Cody was shaken.
No. It was this man who was looking for trouble. I was just trying to scare him. You see, Mr. Cook, I just got promoted. I'm Cody Hunter, the new manager of the entire region. Of course I wasn't going to hurt him. I'll get someone to kick him out right now."
Cody knew that Mr. Cook had a very good relationship with the company's president, Adriana. Plus, he knew how powerful the man was, so he had to suck up to Cook.
"Regional manager, is it?
Adriana, I think you know what to do." Cook was too tired to waste any more words with Cody. He was fine with leaving it up to Adriana. Adriana couldn't believe that Kevin was almost beaten up in her company headquarters. She turned to Cody and told him firmly, "I order you to go to the personnel office tomorrow and turn in your resignation. Don't let me see you here again." Without giving Cody another look, she walked over to Kevin with a big smile and gave him a warm handshake. "Kevin, it's wonderful to finally see you again." Kevin smiled too, and after a moment, Adriana said, "Oh, what the heck? I'm going to give you a great big hug." Kevin was thrilled to see Adriana's success. "You've done so well, and in such a short time. I'm so happy for you." The excitement showed on Adriana's pretty face. "Kevin, this is all thanks to you. All this wouldn't be here without you." She paused for a moment and continued, "Come along with me. There are 2 more people I want you to meet." Kevin was dying to know what the surprise was. He smiled and nodded. "All right, lead the way." Just as the 3 of them were about to leave together, Cody and Rachel came to their senses and ran to catch up with them. President Wright, I was wrong. Please give me another chance." The desperation showed on Cody's face. If only he'd known that Kevin was so close to both the president of his company and Mr. Cook, he would have never been so rude to him. The most important thing for him now was to keep his job. Otherwise, Adriana and Mr. Cook could easily keep him from ever getting another job in Chicago after he was fired. Rachel was even more shocked than her husband. She couldn't understand how Kevin, who had always been so weak and unimportant, would know people as influential as Mr. Cook and Adriana. But she was smarter than her husband and knew of a better way to get her husband his job back for him. She forced a smile and took Kevin by the arm. She said sweetly, "Kevin, boss, this was all my fault. You can call me whatever you want, but my husband finally got promoted to regional manager. I'm begging you, please say a few words for him. Can you convince President Wright not to fire him?" Rachel had never thought that one day she would be asking Kevin for a favor like this. Kevin glanced at her. "What did you just call me?" Rachel looked at the people around her. She couldn't believe she was doing this. Finally, she blurted out, "Boss, I'm begging you. Please don't let my husband lose his job, okay?" Hearing this made Kevin so happy. He turned his head and gave Adriana a smile. "That isn't a bad apology. Besides, it would be a lot of trouble for you to go out and find another employee on such short notice. Couldn't you let him go back to his old job for a while? If he learns how to be a decent person, he can go up for promotion again." Adriana naturally followed his line of thinking. "Since Mr. Williams has said so, you can continue working here, in your previous position. Take it or leave it." Cody was overjoyed at this news. I'll take it. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Thank you, President Wright." Rachel hurried over and gave Kevin a hug. She seemed as surprised at this as he was. Kevin pulled himself gently out of the hug and said, "Okay, that's enough." Adriana invited Kevin to walk with her. "Come on, Kevin, let's go."
"Yes, let's go," added Cook.
The 3 of them left together. They didn't bother to look back at Cody and Rachel as they walked out the front door of the headquarters. Cody turned toward Rachel and stared at her. He growled, "You almost made me lose my job. Why didn't you tell me who he was?" After he finished speaking, he turned around and left, leaving Rachel standing there alone. She looked very embarrassed. Meanwhile, Adriana, Kevin, and Cook headed to the Chartreuse Mill, the largest bar in Chicago. Adriana and Cook led him into the most sumptuous private room of the bar. The 3 of them had just sat down when 2 men with extremely excited expressions on their faces pushed open the door and walked in. "Kevin!" Kevin lifted his head from the drink menu and looked toward the door. He couldn't believe his eyes. "Gilbert! Emo! Come in here, you guys!" Gilbert Rhodes and Emo Squire were comrades in arms. They had served together in the Special Forces, and after they retired, they became Kevin's personal bodyguards and martial arts instructors. They were extraordinary martial artists. Gilbert's mother had cancer back then, and Kevin gave him over $100,000 to help with expenses for her medical care and comfort. Unfortunately, she eventually passed away. A while after that, Gilbert and Emo wanted to move on, so Kevin gave them money to help them out. So everyone in the room had at one time or another gotten help from Kevin. They owed their success to him. After Kevin's family had ostracized him, they all began to search for him. This was pretty much how they got to know each other. Gilbert spoke first. "Kevin, we've been looking for you for years. If only we'd thought of looking for you right here in Chicago." He sat down across from Kevin and looked at him in the eyes. The tough man looked like he was about to cry from joy. Kevin chuckled. "It's really been too long, Gilbert. I can't believe this is your bar. You've done pretty well for yourself." Gilbert smiled broadly when he heard Kevin's praise. He stroked his chin and laughed. Kevin chortled and shook his head when he saw this. "You're still the same as before. You're a tough man, but deep down you're like a little boy. Are you starting to blush?" Everyone laughed. So, Emo, what are you up to? Are you working together? Kevin looked at his tall, handsome friend who was wearing a black casual outfit. Adriana answered the question. Emo's doing very well. He runs a bodyguard company. His employees are a fine group of men and women. Kevin, you can ask Emo to arrange for protection if you ever need it. Emo laughed at the thought. He looked very cheerful and easygoing, not at all like someone who owned a bodyguard company at all. Instead, he looked more like a college student. Kevin chuckled. The way things have been going lately, I may take you up on that offer. After they talked and laughed for a while, Adriana stood up and left the room. A few minutes later, she came back with a gift box in her hand. Kevin, we got you this gift almost a year and a half ago. We're so glad that we can finally give it to you in person. We really hope you like it. Taking the box from Adriana's hand, Kevin looked at his 4 friends and slowly opened the box. As he looked inside, his eyes twinkled. Everyone waited to hear what he would. Kevin was so excited, he held the box carefully in his hands. His eyes were glued to the beautiful antique signet ring in the box. It had an ancient aura, and he couldn't take his eyes off of it. Cook and the others looked at each other, their eyes filled with joy. As long as Kevin liked this gift, then all their effort had been worth it. Adriana leaned back on the sofa and explained, It's all thanks to Gilbert and Emo. They know what you like, especially your interest in antiques from the Middle Ages. They thought that this was appropriate because of all that you mean to us. Kevin looked at the ring for a long time before he carefully closed the box. He raised his glass and said, I'm glad to have found you again, my friends. Thank you so much. Let's have a toast. They stayed up and chatted well into the night. Because it was so late and they were in no shape to drive home, Gilbert arranged for them to sleep in the Chartreuse Mills VIP suite. This just happened to be the first time Kevin had spent a night away from home since he married Lily. And when he woke up the next morning, Kevin didn't head home. Instead, he went straight to his office at Williams Media. After resting on the sofa in his office for a while, Kevin began wondering if he should send a message to Lily. Just then, his phone rang. Kevin saw that it was his mother-in-law, Dorothy. He quickly sat up straight and cleared his throat to answer the phone. Hello, Mom. Kevin, I heard from Lily that you didn't come back all night. Where did you go? Dorothy's tone was very gentle, definitely more gentle than usual. Kevin couldn't help but raise his eyebrow. He was pretty sure she was being so nice to him because of everything that had happened at the Jones family celebration the day before. I'm okay, thanks. I went to chat with my old friend for a while. Later on, it got to be too late, so I slept at his place. Dorothy said, I understand. You haven't seen each other in a long time, so you must have had a lot to talk about. By the way, didn't I ask you to bring your parents here for a physical? It just so happens that I have nothing to do for the next couple of days. How about tomorrow? When he heard her bring the subject up again, Kevin frowned. He really didn't want his parents involved in all of this. Dorothy suspected that Kevin and Lily's trouble having a baby, even by in vitro fertilization, was inherited, so she wanted to get his parents tested. Talk about awkward. Kevin thought about it and replied, How about this? After I bring my parents here tomorrow, I'll pick up you and Lily to go and get another checkup to see what the problem is. He continued, But really, Lily and I don't have any problem. I don't see the need for another physical, and I definitely don't want to drag my parents into this. Dorothy was unhappy to hear this and was about to object, but Kevin didn't give her a chance. Then it's decided. Let's go and get the physical together, all of us. But I have to hang up now, Mom. I still have something to do. Talk to you later. After Kevin hung up, he put down his phone and was about to rest for a while when someone knocked on his office door. Miss Wilson walked in wearing a light blue professional suit and Prada shoes. Sir, Jason from the Jones family is here. He wants to sign the packaging contract for Brittany's debut with us. What do you think we should do? Kevin responded in a very serious tone. He's here pretty early. Don't worry about him right now. Please contact the Jones family directly. Let them know that, since they've ignored my previous instructions, our agreement with them will be voided if they send him here again. If they want to continue to work with us, then they must ensure that all corporate matters will be handled by Lily and Lily alone. Otherwise, we have nothing to talk about. Kevin felt a headache coming on, so he closed his eyes and sat back on the plush sofa. He gently rubbed the space between his eyebrows. Miss Wilson nodded. So Jason will have to wait for the Jones family to inform him to leave? Yes. Jason sat for a long time in the first-floor waiting room. Just as he was getting impatient and was about to go to the front desk for an update, he received a call from Grandma Jones asking him to head home. When he hung up the phone, Jason had a puzzled look on his face. His grandmother had full confidence in him when he left this morning. Why did he feel that there was something wrong with his grandmother's tone just now? He looked in the direction of the elevator again. After waiting for another 5 minutes, it was obvious that nobody was coming to show him into the CEO's office. The only thing left for Jason to do was leave. In the old Jones family mansion, the key players of the family were sitting in the living room trying to figure out how to handle all of this. One of his uncles was wondering out loud, "Why are they doing this to us? Why do they prefer Lily to Jason? After all, her own company was about to close its doors until she got bailed out. I think the new CEO of Williams Media is a fool, and sooner or later, Williams Media will be history." When Jason returned, he heard from Grandma Jones that Williams Media was threatening to cancel their partnership with them. He immediately became furious. He couldn't understand why they seemed to have a grudge against him. It was fine if they didn't agree to his proposal, but why were they demanding to see Lily instead of him? Grandma Jones looked at Jason, who was flying into a rage, and felt empathy for her grandson's suffering. "JJ, please calm down. Your aunts and uncles are all here." Jason turned and looked at them. "What do you all think about this?" A middle-aged man wearing an old-fashioned three-piece suit and glasses spoke first. He was one of Grandma Jones's nephews. "Auntie, why did the CEO of Williams Media choose Lily over Jason? What kind of relationship do they have?" The woman sitting beside him quickly continued. "Yes, why don't we ask Lily to explain this? If they really do know each other, wouldn't that make it easier for us to work with Williams Media?" One of the younger members of the Jones family, a young man who usually hung out with Jason, stood up and said, "As I recall, Lily said that she didn't get to see their CEO when she went to Williams Media. She must have been lying to us. I don't believe it. There must be something tawdry going on between them." Many of them started to whisper to each other when they heard him say this. One of Jason's uncles added, "Yeah, maybe Lily seduced him to smooth out the deal." Another piped up in her defense, sort of. "That useless husband of hers doesn't even have a job. Lily is such a strong-willed person, she has to do something to provide for her future." Listening to everyone's reaction, Jason felt much better and began to smirk. Grandma Jones was upset, but Lily was her granddaughter after all. She saw that everyone was attacking her more and more harshly and coughed twice. The room immediately fell silent. "We need to make a long-term plan. After all, if they want to cancel our agreement, we won't have a chance in court. If that happens, we'll be the ones to suffer." Grandma Jones was absolutely right. Williams Media was far more powerful than they were. The Jones family had to give in. However, they decided that if Williams Media really wanted Jason out of the picture, it would be better to find someone other than Lily to be in charge of the negotiations. She had to be replaced because they just weren't sure of her relationship with the CEO. So Jason's cousin, Matilda Jones, was chosen to replace Jason. They all wanted her to take Lily's place and go to Williams Media the next day. While this was going on, Kevin spent half a day at his office and then rode home on the new electric scooter that Miss Wilson had bought for him. There was no one at home, and Kevin felt that it was too quiet. He tossed a snack in the microwave and relaxed a little. Then he took a nap until Lily came back that evening. Lily walked in, took one look at Kevin's messy hair and wrinkled clothes, and got a little ticked off. "When did you get back? You didn't spend the whole day sleeping, did you?" "Of course not," Kevin replied. "I came back in the afternoon. By the way, did you get a call from Grandma today?" Kevin stood up and got a glass of water for Lily, who was sitting on the sofa. Lily looked at him strangely. "No, why would she call me?" Kevin was a little annoyed at this. It seemed that Grandma Jones still wasn't taking his words to heart. Still, he looked very calm on the surface. "It's nothing. I was just asking." Lily rolled her eyes. When she thought about her family's deal with Williams Media being handed over to Jason, she got really teed off. "Where did you go last night?" she asked Kevin. Thinking about how Kevin hadn't come home last night, Lily felt even more uneasy. She had so many things she wanted to ask him yesterday, but he never came home from the banquet. Kevin chuckled. "I was just chatting with an old friend. It was too late and I'd had a little to drink, so I just slept there." "Old friend? Was it Mr. Cook from the Whistler Hotel?" Lily put down her glass and stared at Kevin. "That's right." Kevin didn't want to hide anything from her, so he decided to tell her the truth. Lily was a little disappointed to hear his answer. After thinking for a few seconds, she sighed. Leaning back on the sofa, she declared, "I don't know how you're such good friends with Mr. Cook, but if you say you were chatting with him last night, then I guess I'll have to believe you." But Lily really wanted to know more. Lily was still wondering how Kevin happened to know Mr. Cook so well. It just didn't make sense to her. After expressing her doubts to her husband, Lily paused for a moment and picked up the remote control to turn on the TV. What kind of person is Mr. Cook anyway? Why would such an important man have the time to chat with you for so long? Kevin shrugged in reply. He really couldn't tell her. Not yet. "Go and make me some spaghetti, would you? I haven't had dinner yet." Lily turned on a popular reality show and watched it while she swiped through some social media posts on her phone. Kevin answered, "Sure, Lily." Then he turned around and headed into the kitchen. He had just put the pasta in the boiling water when Dorothy got home. She saw Kevin cooking in the kitchen and she remembered what Kevin had said to her on the phone earlier in the day. Her expression turned very serious. "Damn it!" Dorothy groaned. Seeing that Kevin hadn't responded to her, Dorothy kicked off her dress shoes and stomped across the room to sit down next to Lily. Lily gave her a puzzled look. "What's wrong? You look like you're mad at someone." Dorothy replied, "Who else could it be? Someone here doesn't know how to show gratitude." Dorothy motioned with her eyes towards the kitchen and Lily immediately understood. Kevin had probably done something else to piss her off. Lily leaned in toward her mother and whispered, "What's the matter? You can tell me, Mom. I'll have a talk with him if it helps." Dorothy noticed that Lily was whispering so Kevin wouldn't hear. Until recently, she didn't seem to care what her husband thought. But Dorothy also realized that it was thanks to Kevin that Lily's company's financial crisis had been resolved so quickly. Sighing, Dorothy patted her daughter on the hand. "It's because the in vitro didn't work. I'm guessing that his family has some kind of genetic issue. I mentioned this to him and I asked him to bring his parents in for a checkup." Dorothy shot an irritated look towards the kitchen as she spoke. "Kevin told me that he wanted to do a checkup along with everyone else. What did he mean by that? Does he think the problem is with me?" When Lily heard her mother bring up the test tube baby topic again, she got impatient. Mom, can you not rush things? I have so much going on right now. How could I possibly think about having a baby in the middle of this train wreck?" Dorothy's eyes widened. "You're still not in a hurry? You've been married for over 2 years. The in vitro's already failed 3 or 4 times and you're not in a hurry? The last time your dad called, he asked me about it too. If you're not in a hurry, then you can tell your dad the next time he calls. I don't want to have to talk to him about it again. Not until you have some good news." "Let's not talk about this right now." As soon as Lily finished talking, Kevin walked out of the kitchen with a big platter of spaghetti and meatballs. She watched Kevin put the pasta on the table and then bring out some plates and Parmesan cheese. Lily ignored Dorothy's sour expression and said to Kevin, "You don't need to bring your parents here tomorrow. We can talk about the checkup later." Hearing her daughter say this, Dorothy grunted and stood up to go to her room. Kevin smiled at her. "Okay, whatever you say, Lily." After eating and then cleaning up, Lily lay down on the bed. Kevin, who was doing some stretches on the floor, turned on his side and used his hand to support his head while he stared at her beautiful side profile. Lily, if Grandma Jones calls you tomorrow and she asks you to talk about the deal with Williams Media, don't agree with her right away. Just let her wait." Hearing Kevin say this, Lily frowned and turned her head towards him. With a puzzled expression, she said, "I don't think we need to worry about that. Grandma has already handed it back to Jason. Why would she ask me again?" "Why do you always say such strange things?" "In any case, remember, if she asks you, just don't agree right away. Promise me you'll sleep on it." Kevin didn't worry about Lily's impatient tone. After saying that, he went to bed and quickly fell asleep. Lily reluctantly reached out to turn off the light. Then she also lay down and went to sleep. The next day after Lily left for work, Kevin headed over to his office at Williams Media. This was the life. Kevin really liked being a CEO. Since Miss Wilson was such an organized chief of staff, all that Kevin had to do all day was drink lattes, read a little, and sign contracts. Miss Wilson knocked on the door and walked in. "Mr. President, the Jones family has sent someone over to discuss their arrangement with us. It's a woman named Matilda Jones." Kevin thought to himself that the pink suit Miss Wilson was wearing added a nice splash of color that contrasted with all the earth tones that surrounded him in his office. Kevin took a sip of his latte and answered dryly, "Please ask her to leave." Grandma Jones really was an interesting character. He had clearly told her to send Lily, but instead she had sent Matilda to discuss their partnership. What was that all about? Like Jason, Matilda was also one of the favorites in the Jones family, and she definitely wasn't used to being told no. In any case, she wasn't prepared for the embarrassment of being asked to leave the Williams Media corporate offices without seeing the CEO. When Matilda returned to Grandma Jones, she told her what had happened. Her grandmother was really pissed off at the news, but she reluctantly agreed that it was time to call Lily. Lily and Dorothy were out shopping on Michigan Avenue while all of this was going on. Because her husband was coming back from an overseas trip in a couple of days, Dorothy wanted to find a nice outfit to wear to welcome him home. While they were looking at Gucci's in one of the stores, Lily heard her phone ringing inside her purse. She pulled it out and was surprised to see that Grandma Jones was calling. She and Dorothy looked at each other for a second before Lily answered. She put the call on speaker. "Hello, Grandma?" On the other end, Grandma Jones sounded a little awkward.
"Lily, Grandma wants to ask you a small favor."
A favor? What kind of thing could make this usually arrogant and self-reliant woman use the word favor? Dorothy couldn't keep from sticking her nose in. "Auntie, don't be so polite. If there's anything Lily can do to help, just tell her." Lily gave her mother a dirty look but kept quiet and waited for Grandma Jones to speak.
"It's about the partnership with Williams Media. I plan to let Lily handle it. She needs to go over there again tomorrow to meet with them in person. Try to get the packaging deal with their new client, Brittany Davis, as soon as possible."
Grandma Jones had it all planned out. However, what Kevin had said the night before popped into Lily's mind. Before Dorothy had a chance to speak, Lily quickly took the phone and turned around. "Sorry, Grandma, since you already handed this over to Jason, I feel that it's not right for you to make a sudden change in the middle of negotiations. You really should let Jason take responsibility for the entire process. I still have a few things left to do today. Gotta go now. Bye, Grandma." Lily hung up the phone abruptly. Dorothy looked at her daughter in disbelief. "What the heck are you doing? Do you know what she could do to us?" Dorothy couldn't believe that Lily was willing to throw away such a golden opportunity. Lily ignored her mother and walked out of the store holding her phone in one hand and her bag in the other. Dorothy wanted to follow her out, but she was still trying on clothes and didn't want to set off the security alarm and be accused of shoplifting. She stamped her foot in frustration. Lily found a bench and sat down. She thought for a while and wrote a text to Kevin. Kevin had just gotten a call from his friend Cook and was planning to have lunch with him. But before he put down his phone, he saw Lily's message. "Grandma Jones just called. She said she wanted to let me take charge of Williams Media. I turned her down. What should I do next?" Kevin grinned. At least Lily was listening to him now. "Don't worry. She'll call you again soon, but you still shouldn't agree to anything until she offers you a good deal." After hitting send, Kevin put his phone in his pocket and headed out to lunch. He rode his scooter all the way to the Whistler Hotel. When Lily felt her phone vibrate, she quickly checked her messages. When she saw Kevin's text, she felt a lot more at ease. On the other side of town, Kevin arrived at the Whistler Hotel and was happy to see that Cook already had a table full of food waiting for him.
"Hi, Kevin. Have a seat."
Cook pulled out a chair for his friend and sat down next to him. He nodded to one of his assistants, one of the men in dark suits who usually followed him around. The man walked over to them with a covered tray. Kevin smiled as Cook opened the silver lid and took out a small velvet box. He was acting very mysterious. After his assistant walked away, Cook quietly put the box in front of Kevin.
"I prepared this especially for you. It's a valuable item that I've kept for almost 4 years now."
"Mitch, you've already given me a wonderful gift. I just can't accept anything else." Kevin politely pushed the box across the table back to Cook. Cook shook his head and grinned as he pushed the box back to Kevin.
"This thing is useless to me. I'm in great health. But you used to look pretty weak, so I tracked down this remedy just for you. And I'm glad I finally have a chance to give it to you."
Before he was finished speaking, Cook's phone suddenly rang. He answered with an abrupt, "Yeah." As the call went on, his expression got more and more serious. After finishing the call, Cook gave Kevin an apologetic look.
"My friend, I'm afraid you'll have to finish this meal by yourself. I have some urgent business to take care of. Please accept this. Consider it an early birthday present."
Kevin smiled and nodded. "I got it, Mitch. Now hurry up and do what you've got to do." He paused and added, "Thank you for the gift."
"Okay, let's get together another day when I'm not so busy."
Then Cook hurried out. Kevin looked at the little box on the table and shook his head. He picked it up and put it in his pocket. "Sometimes I just can't figure that guy out," he thought. Then he turned his attention to the delicious meal in front of him. Since he was now eating alone, he didn't have to watch his manners. After Kevin finished lunch, he checked in with his office, but they didn't have any work lined up for him, so he headed home. When he got there, he took a shower and put on some more casual clothes. Then he pulled Cook's gift out of his pocket. As soon as Kevin opened the box, a light fragrance wafted through the air. As Kevin contemplated the smell, it seemed that his head was oddly clearer than before. In the middle of the velvet box was a pill the size of a small marble. Actually, it looked a little like a jelly bean, and the aroma definitely was coming from it. Kevin remembered Cook saying that he was looking a little gaunt, and he couldn't help muttering to himself, "Could this pill actually make me stronger? It sounds like science fiction to me. Maybe Mitch has been tricked by someone." Then Kevin recalled that Cook had said that the medication, whatever it was, had been prepared 3 or 4 years ago. He didn't know if it had expired, so he was hesitant about taking it. Kevin really didn't know what to do. He didn't want to disappoint his friend. But was that a good reason to take a 4-year-old pill? On the other hand, he did find the aroma somehow relaxing and enticing. Kevin finally decided to take the pill. He placed it in his mouth and reached for a glass of water to help him swallow it. Before Kevin could drink the water, the pill seemed to melt in his mouth, and then it flowed down his throat. Kevin furrowed his brow. He was a little worried and began to regret what he'd just done. Although Mitch was an old friend and he trusted him with his life, he was concerned that maybe there was something wrong with the pill. What would it do to him? Would it kill him? Was it FDA approved? Just as Kevin was contemplating spitting the pill out, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. Then his whole body felt like ice. It reminded him of that time one of his friends had convinced him to jump into Lake Michigan with his polar bear club one cold winter day. Then his eyes rolled up in his head, and he fainted. When Kevin opened his eyes again, it was almost dusk. "What's that horrible smell?" he said to himself. The funk was almost enough to knock him out again. Kevin got up off the floor and discovered that the smell seemed to come from his own body. Great! He ran his hand along his forearm and felt something strange. His entire body was covered with some sticky yellow liquid. It had soaked through his clothes entirely. Gross! What the hell is this? Kevin sprinted to the bathroom to take a shower. He must have washed himself for more than half an hour. Then he changed his clothes again. He gave the house a quick cleaning and sprayed the air with an entire can of freshener. It seemed impossible to get the stink out of the room, especially the spot where he'd fainted. It was stained a pale yellow, and he wasn't sure he would ever be able to get it out. If Lily or her mother come home now, they'll think I've been frying dog crap, he thought. I can't believe someone told Mitch that this would help me. So far, it's given me an intense pain in my gut, knocked me out, and made me smell like an outhouse on a hot July day. Are there any more fun side effects? Kevin kept muttering to himself as he cleaned the room furiously. Just as he finished, Lily and Dorothy came home. Hi, Kevin. What have you been cooking? Dorothy put her shopping bags on the sofa and turned her head to look at Kevin, who was helping Lily. Kevin coughed uncontrollably a few times. I had something to do, so I haven't cooked yet. Why don't we eat out tonight? Dorothy gave Kevin a funny look and said, You're home all day and you don't have a job, but you don't have time to cook? Lily found his excuse a little suspicious too. Even though she thought her mother was right, she wanted to give her husband the benefit of the doubt. You know, I was thinking the same thing, Lily interrupted. There's a new place on the north side. I think it's in Evanston. They say it has great stuffed spinach pizza. Let's head over there this evening. Then she gave Kevin a subtle tug on his sleeve in motion for him to go to the bedroom with her. Kevin was curious to find out what Lily had to say. And did she have any more news about her grandmother?